Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Stool podcast, a podcast for woodworkers and the maker community in general. This is episode number 22. My name is Robin Lewis from robinlewismakes.com. I'm joined by Joey Chalk from King Post Timberworks.
Hello.
And Jordan Crawford from Periodic Furniture Studio.
Yay.
We live stream the recording on YouTube every Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time or UTC plus 10. Or you can watch or listen to it later on YouTube, iTunes, or SoundCloud. I want to say hello to everyone in the chat. We'll get to your comments and questions towards the end of the show, but feel free to chat amongst yourselves. The idea being that this is also a place for people to meet. So in terms of announcements, before we get started, John, do you want to just give us a quick rundown of your event that you were at recently?
Yeah, okay. So this weekend just gone. So I think that would have been the 14th or something like that. The Perth Wood School had a open day. I should turn my phone on silent. The Perth Wood School had a open day, and I attended that on behalf of TimberCon, which is one of our bigger woodworking shops here in Australia. And yeah, it was pretty cool. Had a lot of you guys come up and say hello and shake my hand and give the manager of the store the impression that I was a celebrity, which is not the case.
God, not an impression. Fun. You are a celebrity.
Well, in my own mind, but not to anyone else. But yeah, it was good fun. There was a few mobs down there. I think it was, is it Lee Valley? I can't remember. But we had a cool hand planes and all that down there. And there was a sawmill operating out the back. What else was there? Actually, something which I thought was a great concept to have at one of those events was a bookshop. They had a bookstore, and it was just full of woodworking books, like chair making and bench making and joinery techniques. And
that's cool.
If I had money with me, I would have probably bought a few books because it was super fun. But yeah.
So fun. What was your role there? Like, what were you doing?
Oh, I was just selling stuff and standing behind the stall, just being the face of the brand more than anything. Like, we weren't there with the intention to sell heaps of stuff. We're just there to say, hey, here we are, this is what we have, and had a few new product lines and stuff on display. So yeah, I guess it was more of a marketing ploy for TimberCon than a sales event, which was nice because it meant that we weren't sales driven, we were customer driven. So it was actually having a chat, giving advice, or just having a yarn and that sort of like-minded zone, which was cool.
So if the manager there didn't know that you had any kind of online presence, how did you end up with that gig?
I spent a lot of money there.
So that's basically the key to life is as long as you spend enough money, you can go places.
Yeah, I mean, so his name's Ray, and back when I was still in high school, he owned or managed one of the bike shops around my area, and I bought a bike off him when I was probably 15. And then, he was my go-to guy for all the servicing. So we were quite familiar with each other for a few years. And then when he took over that store and I walked in there one day, he said, oh, hey, we need some help around the shop every now and again. Would you be interested? And I said, well, there's no harm in asking. I spent enough money with you bastards. I might as well make some back. And by bastard, I mean that lovingly because they are awesome bunch of people.
Yeah, that's cool. So is this going to be an annual thing, or has it been an annual thing?
I think it is an annual event that the Perth Wood School puts on. And as most of us know now, Carbotech has pulled out of all show events across the board. So I believe, I have no actual evidence to back this up, but I believe TimberCon is now upping their game to attend more of the events along the lines, just so they have the presence. I don't work for them, so don't take this as gospel. It's just my impression.
I see Ian in the chat has just mentioned he likes, I can't remember if it's on YouTube or Facebook, but TimberCon do a Cool Tool Tuesday, like a little segment. And it was only just a couple of weeks ago that I got onto that. And it is really interesting, some of the tools that they mention in it. So I don't know if that ties in with what you're saying, Jordan. Maybe TimberCon really is trying to, as you say, up their game.
Yeah, I think they definitely are doing more and more to kind of just branch into that new modern age of marketing, like we are seeing a lot of in America. And from my standpoint, it would be great if they got more into the sponsoring YouTubers with, a few little bits and pieces, just because we haven't got anyone local doing that yet. And it could be a cool area for them. But obviously at this stage, they are focusing on their own production of Cool Tool Tuesdays and Meet the, they do another thing called Meet the Maker or something.
Okay.
Where they have a few furniture makers they've showcased. So yeah. I mean, they're doing cool things. I like them. And, obviously I wouldn't back them if they weren't a good company. So it's nice to actually have that small business mentality around a woodworking supplier. It's just really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of upping their game and doing more with YouTubers, that kind of thing, I want to do a quick shout out to one of the listeners, Dan Brent. I met Dan through an online forum probably about 6 months ago. He's a very cool guy. He just recently put me in touch with a festival expo coming up in the future. I don't want to mention names yet because nothing's been set up in stone yet. But I had a very interesting phone call this week with the organizer of this event, and they are putting in. It's a very modern, new school event, and they are putting in a big emphasis on the YouTube side of it and trying to market to the younger generation, which is where the conversation with myself and the Shop Stool podcast extended came in. But it seems like there are a lot of people in these brands that are now tuning into that idea of we can put our brand out and make it cool, funky, hip, and not have that old woodworking stigma behind it.
That's cool.
And they can make it modern. So yeah. Hopefully this is the start of some really good things with the industry, because this was, for those of you who don't know, this was one of the main reasons we started this podcast, is we're trying to get the YouTube community involved in this movement. So it's good to hear that this sort of stuff is happening.
Yeah, definitely.
Good.
All right. So then, as per the usual scheduling, let's do a quick rundown of what we're all working on. Joey, do you want to take us away? I saw your Instagram post about your desk this week, so you probably got some stories.
Well, I just finished my desk this afternoon, put it in place. It is there's not one part of that desk that went according to plan. So, literally every step was a battle. There's bogged up holes where there shouldn't be holes. There's little pieces cut out where there shouldn't be pieces cut out. The hardware was an absolute nightmare. The veneering was a nightmare. You name it. It was not fun. So I'm glad that it's just done and usable, and it looks pretty in the lounge. So that's good.
What timber was it that you used?
It's the veneer. The face veneer is curly walnut.
Oh, beautiful.
Yes, that's right. It was that fancy schmancy stuff that you had.
Did the rippling from the press go down?
It kind of did. There's a patch which is quite bad. If it wasn't curly grained timber, it would just look terrible. But the timber is so curly with a cross wave in it that you can't see the vertical rippling that's there. So that's kind of nice. If you touch it, you can feel it, which is no good. And it's actually, funnily enough, the rippling is dead rock hard as well. You can't push it in.
Yeah, right.
Which is interesting. So there's no way to people had suggested I syringe and glue and push it down. There's no flexibility. So it's really strange. I haven't really come across that before. So.
And is there enough veneer there to sand through it or not?
No, I would have just gone right through if I'd sanded through those lumps. So I had to be quite careful, actually, when I was doing the finishing.
This was a commercial veneer, wasn't it? Like 0.3 mil, not shop sawn.
0.6, yeah.
Not too bad, but yeah, wouldn't risk it.
Not too bad, but no, there's no way I was going to get too carried away.
I noticed that it was a lot lighter than the walnut that I'm used to seeing.
Yeah.
In like the US, in the US videos.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of reasons. Generally, air-dried timber is lighter than the kiln-dried, especially with walnut. You tend to notice that the kiln drying process tends to like darken up the tannins.
You're meaning the color. I was thinking weight. Okay, got you. No, it's not.
Yeah, tone is lighter, I should say, although that could be emotional.
And yeah, I would have preferred it actually to look a bit darker in the room, but it will definitely darken up. The federal desk that I made a couple of years ago was the same color, and now it's quite dark. So it'll just darken up with a bit of sunlight. So that should be fine. I was complaining last week about not having any work come in. Wasn't really complaining, but just stating a fact. And so I'd been chasing people and making things kind of happen. And as I kind of expected, everything's come in at the same time. So now I'm snowed under. I just went and bought 20 sheets of plywood for a couple of bookcases. So that'll keep me going for a little bit.
Are those going to be painted?
Yeah, they're going to be painted. Two different jobs built in.
Built in. Okay.
Yeah, completely different to each other, but kind of trying to do. Actually, they're two different types of plywood as well, just for different budgets, and so just trying to keep track of which is which and what are we doing. I've got a bunch of little points here of things that have come up during the week. Let's see. An interesting little thing. I've been talking to this lady about a kitchen island, a walnut kitchen island that's going to be like 3 meters by 1.2. Been talking to her for 2.5 years about this job. And finally the house is being built. The trusses are going on and it's time to start getting serious about this thing. She came to me to do the island because her kitchen manufacturers couldn't work with the solid timber. And now she's concerned that the kitchen guys aren't going to be able to actually do what she wants. So I'm now pricing up the rest of the kitchen.
Nice.
Yeah, part of the concern is that she has paid them $5,000 for drawings. And that's it. And so she told me that. She's like, I know we're $5,000 in, but maybe at this point we're thinking we should just cut our losses because we're not so sure that these guys are 100% on our side. And I was kind of like, wow, $5,000 sounds about like half the cost of your complete kitchen. So
I was going to say, is that what drawings normally go for? Because geez, that's a lot of money.
Some companies can get away with doing it. I just thought it was an interesting little, there are people doing that and people willing to pay presumably, but it sounds like they have, this company have given them like a complete, we'll buy everything, we'll do all the project management, just give us your money and you'll get a kitchen. And so doing that, you can add on lots of percentages for project management fees and all this kind of rigmarole, which just is an easy money earner. And it's usually actually easier if the client just goes and buys their own stuff and gives it to me. That's way easier. So it's just an interesting little thing. The other thing I thought I would bring up, I'm doing I think I mentioned it last week, another extension table like the one I just built. Yeah,
you did.
The open cherry one. And I'm cheating a bit because this guy's not paying as much money. So
fair's fair, I guess.
Yeah, I'm cheating on the breadboard ends a bit. And I've used the domino to make some big wide mortises. And I've just this afternoon I glued in some plywood tenons. And so then tomorrow I can put my breadboards on. And I'm thinking what I'm going to do on this job is just run my dowel from the bottom side only so it doesn't come right through. Just so sometimes I just don't like the look of the dowels coming all the way through. And I noticed, Jordan, on your tables that you've just finished, you don't have dowels coming through the top either. So
no, I stopped those. So like I had how thick? So the top was 36 mil thick.
Yeah.
So I put the stop on my drill collar at I think it was 32 mil. So
yeah, that's I'm thinking.
So it goes through the tannin and still has a fairly good chunk of material to bite into, but it doesn't get exposed. So I don't particularly like that exposed look, and with the drawing it out as well, I've had more times where it's chipped
That's right.
the grain coming out and I have to patch it, then I have had success, so I've stopped doing it.
Yeah, that's something I just kind of just hit me the other day. I was like, I don't need to go all the way through. Like, the bug of that.
It does help if you're doing the draw board, because you can really nail it through, and you can have a severe like taper on the end, and then you just cut it on both sides. But
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, because I guess then you're pulling on 2 points as opposed to 1.5 at best.
yeah, but I don't like it, so I don't.
Yeah, good call. So yeah,
Joey, with the domino breadboard ends, are you still doing the what do you call it? The notched what do you call it? Haunch tenon. Are you still
No.
doing? Okay, because I was going to ask, because I've seen when I was doing.
I don't like them. That's why I don't like domino breadboards, because there's no haunch all the way along.
So when I was doing my dining table, I was researching all these ways to do breadboard ends, and I kept seeing people with their stupid dominoes just shooting holes in and sticking the board on, and thinking that's so much easier.
It's easy, but it's not.
I don't think it's good.
If you've got a tight join, there's nothing wrong with it. Potentially, there's an issue that when stuff moves a little bit, you could get at the right angle, and you can see light coming right through the dry joint. There's a potential for that to happen, which I don't like. So that's really the only downside, I suppose. I mean, there's other downsides, but I didn't want to use just like a 30 mil wide domino, so I've created like a 60 mil wide slot and made plywood tenons instead, and we'll see how that goes tomorrow.
Cool. The last week you were talking about there was a pretty tricky customer. It was a lady, and you had just been on the phone with her. What was the outcome of that?
So she came back to me and said, I think I'd said, she asked me to route out the bottom of the shelves and drop the shelves
that's right. It was
onto
the
shelf
buttons.
pins.
Yeah.
So she did that, and I said, okay, I don't think that's going to look any better than shelf buttons, but I come and do it. It's going to be an hourly rate because it's not part of the job. And she just came back within 5 minutes and said, fine, just give me my money back. So that's what I did. I gave her half the money back.
Is that right?
Yeah. No deposit though. Kept the deposit. No problem there.
No. She had paid me in full for this job, and she had ordered 2 of these shelving units, and for complicated reasons, one of them was meant to be different, but I didn't get that message, so I gave her the money back for the one that was supposedly wrong, and that was it.
Oh, sounds like a vaguely happy ending then. After all,
I don't like losing. A few $100, but
sounds like you need the time at the moment then.
Yeah, I was just like, well, I can't fix it. I can't make you happy. So I really just wanted her to say, give me my money back, because in that situation, anything I did was going to cost me way more than giving her half the money back. It was really getting to the point of rebuilding it. So it's like, well, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's me.
Fun.
Jordan, we already got onto your tables. Do you want to tell us the rest of the story?
Yeah, so where am I? This week I have finished off the tables which I was doing last week, which is the 2 matching 3.2 meter long dining tables. And in fact, I delivered those today. So that was a 370K round trip.
Sure.
Which sucked.
Happy customer though?
Yeah, well, they're a commercial customer, so the people that are paying no idea. They're not even there. They're 300Ks away. But all of the people that were there loved it. So Palmerston Association is a drug and alcohol rehabilitation centre, and that's who the client was. And this is a relatively new. The word escaped me when I was there as well. What was it? New. Yeah, establishment facility. That's what I'm looking for.
Yes.
It's a new facility of theirs, so they're still kind of getting everything in order. But when the tables got in there, it really tied it all together, and all of the kind of helpers and volunteers loved it. So it was awesome.
And how did you get the sale in the first place?
I've done their other facility here in Perth. I did their tables. So it's kind of like a repeat business deal. And the way I got that first job was actually through a watcher of my YouTube videos that put them on to me. So it was kind of cool.
Did you? Now you used the monocoat stuff.
I did, yeah, first time.
Give us information.
Okay, so first thing that happened, there's like a backstory to how hell table finishing was, because my wide drum sander, it uses pneumatics for belt tracking. Right. And one of the pneumatic cylinders failed, so I was down to just having one drum, which is the one with the platen, which is 0.1 millimeter maximum depth of cut.
Jeez.
So I ended up having to stay here until how late was it? It was 11:15 p.m. on Tuesday, just doing the underside.
Oh my god!
And then because I didn't have both the belts running, it has this ripply effect that you get through the sanding. And the thing with the Rubio monocoat is the finish is as good as your sanding. So if you want it to be glossy, you sand up to like 500, 600 grit. If you want it to be matte, you leave it at 240, 300.
Jeez.
And I was going for somewhere in the middle, which was 320, but it was just hours of sanding, like ridiculous amount. And so Ellen actually helped me out for a little bit of it. So that was the first time she's been in the shop for a while, and I made her breathe in all this fine dust sanding. But I don't think she'll be back anytime soon. The plan worked. No, joking. So anyway, the monocoat, at the end of the day, after hours and hours of prep work because of the failure there, went on, and the first coat I did, which was the undersides and one base, I used 70 grams of oil, which is crazy. Nothing, like tiny small amount. And I had a little bit left over in the cup, and it came out phenomenal. I couldn't believe the finish that I got, even though that was the rough sanded side.
And that was ragged on?
It uses like, the 3M Scotch-Brite buffing pad things.
Oh, really?
I was using one of them because that's what the salesman kind of demonstrated, and he gave me a few pads included in the sale.
Right.
But I found that wicked up quite a bit of the oil. So I got to about halfway through the first table, and then it started spreading a lot better. So obviously it kind of had pre-saturated the pad.
Right.
And then you kind of wait about 10 minutes, and then you go to the fine, like the white, which is the extra super fine, and you kind of wipe it off with that.
This guy.
Yeah, that guy right there. And then you give it a bit longer, and then you just wipe it off with a clean rag, and whatever's stuck to the wood fiber is your finish.
Huh.
The top coat, which was sanded to 400 grit, on the top, I think I mixed up 80 grams, and I had 20 grams left, so I only needed 60. And I did the two tops, all the edges, and one base, the other base. And I've wasted probably enough to finish another table.
Do you think that because if you didn't sand to a fine grit, it would just soak up way more? It's because the sanding has kind of burnished the top that it's not soaking in a heck of a lot?
I think that has a lot to do with it, and I think that's also why they give such a broad coverage range on their container, because they say 35 to 50 square meters per litre, which is like a massive.
It's almost double, yeah.
So I think that's got a lot to do with it. What I ended up doing on the second batch, though, which worked a lot better, was I used my fingers like in a rubber glove, and I spread it out really thin, and then I went over it with the pad to kind of push it down into the wood. And the way that this oil apparently works is on the molecular, like bonding to the timber underneath. So it doesn't soak in any deeper than like
a micron.
Not even, like a couple of microns.
Yeah.
So anything that is left pooling on top of the surface is waste. So you don't want any when you're applying it. You want it to be as thin as possible. And
so did the leftover in the cup go hard?
Yeah, it did. So it comes with a hardener. You don't need to use the hardener, but if you don't, it takes 3 weeks for it to fully cure, opposed to 3 days. So in that cup today, it was probably about 5 mil deep in the bottom of it was only a little cup.
Yeah.
And I'd say 3/4 of that was hard, and I managed to pull that out, and I pulled a little bit out with my finger and just patched a little bit of my workbench, and it was still good.
Huh.
But I mean, I'm not going to say it's well justified spending $400 on a liter can of this stuff. But seeing how far it's going, and the fact that I left it out in my workshop, it was covered in dust by the time I got back the next day, and I just wiped it off, and the finish was still perfect. It's enough for me to recommend it to anyone. And I have their factory is right next door to me. Well, not right next door, but down the road from me. And they've told me that if you want to kind of on-sell it, here's the retail list, here's your list. And, I can sell it on behalf of them at retail prices to anyone, and I just call them off and they'll drop it off to me.
Jeez.
So
that's pretty
cool. Kind of cool to just say that I have the full supporting range of monocoat maintenance oils and blah, blah, blah.
Are you getting a 5% cut for that then?
And I get a 5% cut. I mean, I'm not doing it, but if someone wants it, I'm happy to kind of bring it in for them.
Sweet.
So now you're working for TimberCon and Monocoat.
Well, no, I'm just on retailing for them.
Stumbling over your words.
But it's cool. It's cool. Like, I don't know. I need more time with it to really get behind it 100%. But so far, I'm impressed.
Looks good.
Just a quick question. I noticed you were talking about the measurements in weight as opposed to milliliters or volume.
That's because I didn't go and buy a syringe. So
okay.
I used my mixing stick, and then I would pour it, actually I've got a stick right here, and I'll hold it over the cup, and when it would stop dripping, I'd get a little bit more out of the can, because it's it's worth its weight.
Yeah. I just wondered if there was some reason why you used weight instead of everything else.
It was just because I forgot to get the stuff I needed.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
I've been doing some other stuff this week. So I've got another commission that I've started today, just machining all the timber on. That didn't make any sense. Started machining all of the timber floor. There we go. Which is a stance table, one of my standard range.
Oh, cool.
Just a bit wider. And I've had, that little cabinet I did, which was whitewashed base. And which was kind of hard to do. Delivered that, and she loves it. She's stoked, but now she wants a 3-sided mirror, which she can hinge the doors in, and she wants beveled glass, and she just wants that to mount onto the back of it. So I have to price that up, because beveled mirrors are not cheap. So I doubt she'll go with it, but that's what she wants. So she might. I mean, she paid to have that piece of poo refinished, so she might.
Does she want the mirror to have the same kind of intricate carving on the...
No. So she just wants it to be like a pretty slim frame, but to match the top. And I'm pretty sure that's Oregon, so it'll be easy. And what else? I mean, there's been a lot of running in and out and doing small jobs here and there, but they're boring and no one cares about that. So I'll throw it over to you, Robin. I was going to do a football reference, but I couldn't think of one.
So that is so un-Australian that you can't even think of a football.
Now I'm going to handball it over to you.
There we go. As the token foreigner, I hate the fact that I know more about it than you do. Yeah. So this week I'm still been on my bathroom renovation, slowly moving through it. I've got the electrics in this week, so I've gone from having these crappy wall-mounted light switches inside the bathroom with wall-mounted 3-core Romex running up to a horizontal fluorescent bulb on the wall. Real stylish. Pulled all of that out, and I've got 3 down lights in the bathroom and 1 in the toilets, all running to a single gang or a 3-gang single switch outside. So much. It's amazing how you just update the lights and suddenly the entire room is just transformed. It's suddenly modern. So that got done. Today, the plumber came in. So I finished the bath hob this week. It's quite an interesting design. What you normally do is you notch the bath into the studs in a corner. So whatever corner the bath goes into, you notch it into the studs, and then you put your sheets over that. Now, because my bathroom is all the sheets are asbestos, I try to leave them in place. I didn't want to just stop pulling them off. Yeah. So what I decided to do was build the hob 90 mil off the wall and sit the bath in that. And I got halfway through, and then I thought, but now I'm going to have all the water pooling in that inside corner. So on the fly, I thought, a brilliant idea. Let me build up a little shelf around the inside corner, which, of course, from the start was my plan, because that's where you're going to put all your shampoo bottles and stuff. Brilliant idea. So it was a little bit complicated, well, a bit more complicated than it needed to be, but I finished that today. I've sheeted everything. The plumber was here today hooking up the waste on the bath. I installed the bath 2 days ago for the first, never done a bath before. It was, Joey, I almost got onto a text message with you and saying, please, I don't know what to do. Just give me something. But got through it. It's nice and solid. It's in a little bit of mortar. There's no bounciness in it, or no bonginess, I guess you'd call it. And plumber came in today, hooked it up. All the sheets are on. I've primed all of them. Tonight, I'm going to have to silicone all the joints, and then I'll get a waterproofer in. He'll just come in and check it and then do the final waterproofing. So fingers crossed, hopefully this weekend I'll be tiling.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Fun. Taking so much longer than I thought. I'm still enjoying it, but it's taking so much longer than I thought. But now that I'm onto this stage where I'm putting the tiles up, all of the nervousness is sort of gone, because now it is what it is.
Yeah.
Like all the technical stuff, the hard stuff is done. There's nothing more I can do. So now I'm onto the jobs that I know, and it should be a little bit more enjoyable.
Are you getting a bit of a hurry along from the missus?
Yes. Yeah, because basically, I won't go into too many details, but for those of you who've been following along the last couple of months, I have a little one on the way. Yeah. And a couple of weeks ago, we found out that our little one is in a hurry to jump out. So actually it's about 3 weeks. The little thing isn't growing fast enough.
Right.
They're going to have to induce it 3 weeks earlier.
Jeez.
So
get a move on.
Yeah. So with our
so how many weeks does that leave you with?
So it's gone from the 7th of June to 3 weeks before that. So we're like middle of May. So
just after the show.
Well, I hope it's just after the show. Otherwise, I'm going to have to literally drop the mic and jump on the, this earliest flights I can get back. So we'll see. But yeah, so to answer your question, yeah, there is a bit of hurrying along, because there's still some other jobs that need to get done as well. So yeah.
Okay.
Just a quick question there from Ian. How many weeks with no bathroom? So it's been 4 or 5 weeks that we've been showering outdoors, and
Jesus, man.
the temperature's starting to dip now. So when I go for my morning run and I come back at about 6:30, that is a cold shower in the morning.
Townsville cold.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not fun, but it could be worse.
Patient wife.
Yeah, no, it's. I think because of the amount of money that we save, we'll keep doing this.
Yeah.
But yeah, both of us are starting to get to the end of our tether now. It's there's just crap everywhere, and the bathroom joins onto the kitchen. So the kitchen's just a disaster.
Yeah.
There's just dust everywhere. I'm just done with it now.
Yep. Cool. Right. So let's do a podcast about something.
Yeah. So that's my story. Let's move on to tonight's topic, which is, this was something that Jordan suggested. It's basically about the hardware that we use on our projects. What's a good type of hardware? What's a bad type of hardware? What sort of style of hardware you would use for different projects? I know Joey, you've recently had some issues with your hinges on your Yes. Did you end up getting those hinges to work, or did you end up having to get some new type of hinges? Or
so I bought a set of hinges. Theoretically, they would do the job. And I must say, this is for my desk. And I mean, I think I won't say I'm pushing the boundaries of like mechanics, but I'm really using. No, that definitely is pushing the general hardware range. Like what I want to do is pretty modern, and what I have done, and there's not much hardware made for it. And even when you talk to the people in the know, they're like,
They pause.
Yeah. So when that happens, you know that you may or may not work. But what I wanted to say for this topic really was, my first response is I use whatever is going to work for the job, because I do such different stuff. But mainly it's about finding a supplier of hardware that are reliable, they're service oriented, and they have a decent help desk, and they know what they're talking about. If you can find a group of people with those qualities, like stick with those people. And I've found a few. I've got probably 4 places like who supply different types of hardware, and they understand my technical jargon when I call and ask for whatever it happens to be. And I'm sure there are other companies who are just as good, but at the moment I don't need to branch out. I've found my go-to guys, and I'm like sticking with them, because you start getting a rapport with these people, and I think that's kind of the best way to go ahead. So I would give it, for anyone in New Zealand, I'll give a shout out, because probably someone's going to ask me. There's a company called Technical Equipment on the North Shore of Auckland. They have anything you want, or they can get it, no matter what. They're a little tricky to deal with, because they've got 20,000 different pieces in their warehouse, and so sometimes it's difficult to actually get what you want, or get the message across, but they will have it. They will get it to you pretty quick smart. So if anyone needs some specific stuff, go and see them, talk to them.
And they're only New Zealand, or do they ship international?
Well, I imagine they ship international. They actually have a weekly standing order with Japan. So if you order on a Wednesday, you'll have whatever you ordered by the following Monday or something crazy, and it's direct from Japan. So it's pretty crazy.
I was just thinking, because Columns dropped a question there. Do you have a good supplier for drawer sliders? He's
yes.
down in Adelaide. He's
in Adelaide.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I need to talk to this company, Access Group, who's just down the road from my warehouse. They have a huge range of really good quality stuff, and it's cheap as chips. I need to talk to them about whether they do international shipping, because a lot of people ask me about their stuff on YouTube. So it's probably something as well, but I can't say for sure if they do shipping at this point.
Yeah, well, Colin, give them what was the name again, Joey?
Access Group.
Access Group cabinet hardware.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. You mentioned that they good quality stuff for a low price.
Yep.
Is it good quality stuff because it's brand names, or is it good quality stuff because you've used it and you know that it's good quality?
There's a couple of branded pieces, but most of this stuff is a brand, but it's probably nothing you know. I don't want to say knockoffs, but it kind of is very similar to the stuff you get from Blum, a lot of their stuff.
Yeah.
Everyone's copying what Blum have done, so it's not really a surprise there.
I just, when I see something that's going for a cheap price and it's not a brand name, my immediate response is, this is going to be some, Asian knockoff.
Yeah,
I'm not even going to waste my time with it. Close-minded for something like hardware where, a hinge, while obviously you want it to be a certain quality, it's quite a simple thing. Yeah. It doesn't need physicists going after it.
Well, that's what you think.
Unless it's a really fancy hinge.
What if it's going into space?
So when it comes to like draw runners, I think the best kind of comparison is, and I was really shocked when I found out that Blum have a lifetime guarantee on all of their stuff. If it breaks, you just take it back and they'll replace it, no questions asked. And I thought, wow, that's crazy. Who else is going to do that? Well, it turns out Access Group do the same with their drawer hardware. You buy one of their soft close drawers. If it breaks in the lifetime of that kitchen, which is a slight clause, but not really an issue, if it breaks, they'll replace it. I mean, you can't really ask for better than that.
Yeah. So, sorry, just to clarify. So, Blum, are they the supplier, or is that the brand of the actual?
Blum is the brand of the kind of original Austrian engineered, high quality, heavy gauge steel. Everything's very much engineered, and I think a lot of other companies have kind of taken their designs and just reverse engineered them and kind of manufactured them themselves. Generally, it's with slightly less beefy parts and materials, but it works the same. They're slightly different, but pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
And so it depends what the client wants. Sometimes clients will come to me and say, you can only put the best drawer runners you can find in my piece. And so, okay, well, I'll go to Blum and I'll get their stuff, because that seems to be what everyone here knows. So,
so you actually specify with customers, like, this is the hardware I want to use. These are the options that you have.
Yep.
I can put in some cheap junk, save you some money. You might not have a door on your kitchen in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. I can say, yeah, you can pay $2 for a hinge or $6, and it can be soft close and all sorts of fancy stuff. Or we can just put like a butt hinge on it, and it will cost you 50 cents.
Do you go into that detail quite often with quoting? Because that just seems like such a side thought for the customer, not for you, obviously.
It depends on the size of the job. If there's like 70 drawers, the cost of each drawer runner is going to add up very quickly. And so then I'll say, right, these are your 6 different options, and each of them have got pros and cons, and knock-on effects for each different option. And so, what way do you want to go?
So, what styles of hardware would you say is your main? You spent the most on in most projects. Would it be drawer runners or hinges, or
it have to be drawer runners probably, and then hinges.
Yeah,
and it's all soft close and all like Euro, concealed hinges.
Yeah, right. Because the reason why I kind of came up with this topic, because I thought, one, it would be kind of simple, but two is I'm currently looking for some decent hardware, but it's actually been surprisingly difficult for me to find somewhere that is, one, local, so I can actually go down and check it out in person and know what I'm buying.
Yeah.
Or two, one which is name brand, like you said, Blum, or obviously the American equivalent would be like Brusso or whatever,
or something like that.
Yeah, but actually finding someone which has it all in stock has been a pretty big mission, because for one, I don't know exactly what I need, so I want to go down there and find something which I think to myself, I can actually integrate this by just doing this. And there we go, I'll use these barrel hinges and that's fine. But to actually find somewhere that has that is being quite a mission.
I've always had this kind of eye for hardware. If I'm in some random shop, I'll find something and go, all right, mental note, this shop has got this crazy oddball stuff. And if that ever comes up, I'll try and remember that I saw it in this shop. Of course, these days I could probably take a picture of the shop with my phone or whatever. But so I've found with the bigger guys, like someone's just mentioned Hitich, I don't know how you say that word, and Hefeli. I've tried to get accounts with those guys, and even Blum. They won't give me an account because I don't spend enough.
Yeah.
And they want you to be spending $20,000 to $30,000 a month. Like, right. So, and they're like, well, the only way you can buy our products is to go through a major store like Bunnings. Oh, that's great. They just put 600% on the price of it.
Yeah.
So it's not worth my while. And so that's when I found these other independent stores and suppliers. So I would say that you could surely find wholesalers to commercial, like kitchen manufacturers and stuff. There must be someone. Even talking to a commercial kitchen manufacturer, they'd probably say who they deal with.
I mean, actually, I could go next door to the kitchen shop across the road and ask them. It's just I'm shy.
Is there a market for your boutique hardware? Like boutique, as in they make it on site, they make to order. They replicate vintage stuff. Does that exist?
In the States, I actually buy a lot from the States direct through several different online stores and even from England, I've bought same kind of stuff because it's just easier. It's very difficult to get the right size because I'm always converting bloody inches. But they have huge ranges online, and you can see the different quality types, and it's all specified out. It's just a matter of wading through 1,000 websites and finding one that works for you and is easy to use, and they will actually ship to you. And so that sometimes it's more expensive. So I'll only do that for like special brass fittings or drawer locks, door locks and stuff that need like old-fashioned skeleton keys and stuff like that. Because there's no suppliers like that here.
I recently purchased some small, I think they were 50mm hinges. I was going to use them on the bassinet that I made recently. I've never bought hinges online, and they look fairly decent, but that's obviously a stupid thing to say when you're buying online. They actually turned out to be amazing. I didn't end up using them because they took too long and I wanted to get the build out. But from now on, I'm sold on the idea of buying hardware. I mean, obviously it's only been one time and it was a good experience. So they could change, but like for a first time, I'm pretty happy. The quality, they're amazing. You know, I'll definitely go there, right? Instead of as someone who's, not at the level that you guys are, like for me, it's like Bunnings and Masters. That's where I get my hinges from. And it's very, very like small, the range that you're going to get. So yeah, definitely give it a go online.
What kind of stuff are you after? Is it like older style stuff or modern?
Well, it's a lot of exposed, so older hinges, they're going to be basically in full view. So I just don't want something that looks like it's cheap and going to fall apart. It's because a lot of the hinges that I get, which if I go to Bunnings and just grab something for a quick project, they do the job, but they don't look good. And if you get close to it, you can see that the fold isn't actually closed. And the pin has a kink in it.
Gurner hinges. So I've talked about Anton Gurner before. He's a crazy awesome furniture maker. I believe he's in Melbourne or Sydney. I think maybe it's Melbourne. He has a side project called Gurner Hinges where he imports his own solid brass. That's like essentially like Brusso hinges. And so he's got a small range, but they're very good butt hinges. It's like 2mm solid thick brass plate. So they're awesome. And so it's got, I think it's all in millimeters as well, so you can actually tell what the hell you're buying. Yes,
I have found the Brusso stuff from the woodworks.com, like a store in Sydney, but of course it's all 2-inch by 1 1/8 inch, and it's like,
what is that?
And if I'm buying online and I can't figure out what size it is in front of me, it's going to be pretty hard. So
that would be your best bet for traditional style hinges.
Cool. Gurner.
Yep.
But the other thing was in general, and just quickly, do you think there is a place, and this is for both of you, a place for brass screws in furniture and steel screws? Like, do you think one is better than the other? Because traditionally speaking, you would have brass, but steel is so much more durable and easier to use. Like, do you guys fall into that mindset? Because personally, I don't. I'll use a steel screw on anything that's not exposed. If it's exposed, I'll use brass. But
yeah, pretty much that's it. If it's going to be seen, it's going to be a brass flathead screw. Otherwise, it's just a steel square drive.
Yeah.
I believe there's a very niche space in hell for anyone who decides to use a flathead screw these days, because the amount of times I've just about thrown the door across the room trying to get it off the wall with these old painted over 1 million time flathead screws. Now, no, obviously that's a different scenario, but I just think the man who invented those was out to torture us, because they are just the devil's work. Personally, I don't mind using steel or even better stainless, because it just looks a bit better, the screws. But I would only use this, your silver colored screws for modern projects. I think if you want the antique look or the traditional look, brass is obviously the way to go. But I've got no problem with using silver hardware. But I don't know. I just think it generally fits better with your, if you're making something modern.
Like if I go to an art show and they've got an exhibit of furniture and I see that they're using a steel screw, I wouldn't give a crap. Like, I still think that's a high value, very nice piece of furniture, and I wouldn't take marks off for a steel screw being used, or even to the next extreme, they're using a Phillips drive. There you go. That's 5 marks taken off right there. Like, I just don't agree with that.
I would give marks off for Phillips, because it's terrible. I don't know who can use them. Yeah.
I don't mind. I mean, obviously, if it's on the prime thing and it's the first thing you look at, probably I wouldn't want it, but I don't care. It's fine.
No, I agree. Like, I think only people like us care about the color of the screw head. But
yeah.
Is there a place yet for, what's the square one? Robertson's?
Well, that's all I use.
But I mean, as a show face, is there a place for that yet, or is it still flat's the way to go?
Depends what it is. I actually will probably, if I had to do a show face, like a stainless screw head, I would go to a star drive.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't even think of those then. Actually,
what is it? Is it PEX or something?
Yeah, something like that.
I've recently just bought a bunch of them, which is what I use for the tables I just put out for securing the top. And
that's the user.
They're really nice. First time I've actually had them here.
That's is that the star? Because the star is different to hex heads.
Yeah, it's not a hex. I think it's called PEX.
Yeah, something like that.
PEX, I think.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm with you.
But really nice to use. I'd stock up in solely those if I could, but nowhere actually has the range I would need.
When I put the outdoor sofa together that I made at the beginning of the end of the last year, I used a 50mm stainless screw with a star drive, but the head was only like 4mm across.
Yeah, I noticed that. Really small.
As big as a jolt head nail. And those things. And they had a self-drilling, self-tapping, so you could just drill straight through the hardwood. Yeah. And those things were beautiful to use. So
that's what they use for decks, isn't it? With the really small heads. So
those ones that actually, apparently, the ones I used, they're meant to be for screwing seated cladding on. So instead of where you would want a small head like a nail, it would traditionally be nailed on, and they're screwing them these days because sometimes it's specified. So yeah.
Okay. All right.
Let's hammer out this thing. Just hammer it out.
we were going to spend a lot less time on the topic tonight because we've got two very interesting questions. I actually had 3, but we're not going to get to them. But unfortunately, as per usual, the show has run over time. So this particular question came into me via an email this week, and I wanted to mention this question because the person who sent the question I thought was extremely diplomatic about the way they asked this question, which I appreciate. So I'm going to read the email. I'll probably just miss out a couple of bits just from a time perspective. So it's from Dubs. I'm not going to give away any more details than that, just because I think reading the email, he doesn't particularly want to be too well known. Email reads. The first line is, I'm curious, what you're about to read is not meant with any malice or ill intent. I'm simply curious as to why. And I read that and I thought, well, this is good. I'm going to get a cup of coffee for this one. I subscribe to a few different woodworking channels and have done so for a long time. I call the channels for this purpose Channel 1 and 2. Both channels I have followed for a long time, and in both cases have people that love what they do Fast forward to having enough subscribers, and channel 1 has become intrusive with sponsorship and cutaway advertisements. Channel 2 has also become what I like to call the Michael Bay of woodworking videos due to the blatant advertising of the particular model saw with the close-up shot in slow motion of said saw. Whilst I still enjoy the channels by staying subscribed and viewing the content, I can't help but question their motives for doing what they do anymore. And despite the high video quality, the quality of the video still takes a dive for me due to the ads. My questions for the show are: where do you think the line is between making content the priority over advertisements? And does editing videos take such a toll on you that you begin to lose motivation for creating videos in the first place? So as I mentioned, I like the fact that this person hasn't said advertisements are bad or advertisements are good. It's nice to see someone appreciating the grayness of this. So Joey, we talked about this briefly before. I know you've got a pretty solid view on it.
Well, possibly. I mean, I don't know where the line is. I do. He mentions in the email that you missed that part, but he mentions about people, creators making videos solely based on a sponsor's product. And if the product didn't exist, then that video would never have existed. I think we're probably all in agreement that those videos are usually pretty terrible, and it really is just a way for them to make a buck. And the content is not inspired, or it's just is what it is. And so that seems to me pretty useless. I made a conscious decision after trying to get sponsors for my channel to just not have any sponsors. I will not have any sponsors in the future. And my conscious right at the very start was that I'm just going to let my work speak for itself, and eventually people will catch on and view that work, and that seems to have paid off. That is a completely different scenario if you are relying solely on YouTube to live off. And so I guess you have to make some hard decisions about what your content's going to be, because you need to get some views. So it's a difficult position to be in. I guess you just need to accept that if someone is doing content creation full time, their content may be up and down as far as quality.
John?
Yeah, I agree mostly, but I think there's it's difficult for me to answer it because I'm not relying on my content creation as my job. Like, my job is being a furniture maker, and I film it on the side because I find it fun and people watch it, and I like sharing my kind of passion with people out there in the public. The little bit of revenue that I make is nice, but it's certainly nowhere near enough to pay for even, any of my bills, really. So from my standpoint, I've never really looked at creating content to make money, and therefore getting advertisers or sponsors have never been a big deal. But I will say that when a channel is sponsored and all I see is that particular sponsor's products, and I get those little pop-up things in the bottom saying head over to the Bear and purchase this at this link and all of that sort of crap, it just annoys me, because one, I'm not watching this video because I want to buy this bloody tool. I'm watching this video because I want to watch you make a bookcase. So like I get annoyed at it, but when it's done well, and an example of someone that does it well is Chris Salomone. In my opinion, he does it quite well, because occasionally he'll do that cutaway segment talking about, I think it's Grizzly is his sponsor, and he'll do the cutaway, but the extent of that is generally not the focus of the episode, so to speak. So I guess I would say the line is when the priority or the focus is the sponsor, you've crossed the line.
Yeah, true.
Where if it's supplementing and saying, hey, this sponsor is supporting me, and it means that I can actually do this full time and make these kick-ass videos, and it's why you guys have subscribed, that's good. So there is a line. I think it's just you have to keep the focus in check.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, my only qualm with what you've said is, as someone who's doing this, who started doing this purely from a content creation perspective. So I've sort of been the opposite of what you guys have done. I find it frustrating that I have to walk this line the whole time when all I'm trying to do is make this my income.
Right.
But I've got to be so conscious of annoying people. And when you say like, now don't get me wrong, I agree with what you guys are saying, but I just feel like us as content creators have been cornered into this really frustrating bit where I want to make a living out of this, but I've got to be so careful that I'm going to upset you with my progress. And like, why do you hate me so much that you're not letting me progress? So it's super tricky. And I've talked about it before as well with the sponsors. I've just stopped it just because the net gain is never there. It's never there.
No.
But at the same time, when I'm watching particularly smaller creators and they're doing an ad read, I will watch that ad read because that's them going somewhere, doing something, because advertising exists all around us. We don't turn off our TV because I'm so tired of adverts.
Well, it is happening.
I'm not saying that we should all then just submit and just accept it, but at the same time, like that's almost part of it, and it's part of that content creator's growth. So I guess on one hand, I'm with you guys in that it's hard to define the line. And when there was a video that came out a couple of days ago, I'm not going to mention who it was, but they put out a video and it was clearly, blatantly just to promote a product.
Right.
The video was a short video about a just non-topic to promote a new product. And it's funny. That's one of the first times that I've watched that and gone, I feel dirty inside having watched this video. But for the most part, yeah, like I want to watch people's adverts because I know that that's going to keep our content in our community growing, because then that's where the money is, and then the businesses will follow suit.
I think like back when my channel was growing quite rapidly before it died and I decided to shut it down and start a new one, what I got out of advertising more than anything as a creator was getting annoyed that all of these like American channels are getting these great sponsors, but here in Australia, we don't have anyone offering that. So like that was also a really big difficulty for me, is not actually having anyone to really go and approach saying, hey, this is what I'm doing. I mean, I obviously there's Bosch and a few companies that will send tools out, but they won't become a channel sponsor. They'll just support a video. So,
and that's the cultural thing that I'm talking about. Over in the States, there's advertising everywhere all the time.
Yeah, I mean, they're seeing the value in it, obviously. So
yeah, that's the culture. Whereas here, yeah, I think people just immediately get turned off if something's getting forced down their throat.
Well, why don't we cut this short and then we pick up maybe next week and do a whole episode on this maybe.
Yeah, it's a real interesting topic. Unfortunately, we run out of time as usual. But yeah, okay. One other question. We'll keep this super quick because I did want to put this one in. I said I would. Okay, so this is from Mbijon. I think that's how you say the name. Sent through a question on Instagram. Love you guys. Love the podcast, by the way. Any chance you guys could talk about how tough one wood is to work with versus another? A lot of us tend to get stuck with whatever is cheap locally, but the three of you probably worked with a lot of different woods and know what eats blades and what tears out bad. So I guess the question is how tough one wood is to work with versus another. So I guess how you would handle something like Jordan here in Australia, like Jarrah or something with a high silica count. Do you steer away from that over something a bit softer because you know that it's going to put a lot of stress on your tools, or are you just using whatever the wood whatever the client wants, that's the wood.
Okay. I like a really hardwood here is Wandu. It's one of the densest timbers is out there, and I will avoid using it at any cost because it will literally shatter the carbide off of your saw blades and router bits. That said, people want Wandu, and if they want Wandu, then I do it. But I do add on to that cost the cost of the professional sharpening, because it's gonna happen. Do I avoid woods I wouldn't say I avoid woods, but I do try and guide clients to woods which I know how to work with and know how to react. Like, Vic Ash, while it's pretty easy to work with, I know that it will tear out because of its grain structure. So,
but that's more about how it works, not so like, this is like I'm going to be putting a rock through my saw.
Exactly right. So it's just I'm considering these things. So if I want something that's a little bit lighter, easier to work with, and more stable, I will advise the client about these other options. But if they've got their heart set on something, I'll do it. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question. But
Joey, any woods that you stay away from because they're just too hard?
Purple Heart is pretty difficult to work with. It's difficult to get a smooth finish. It's difficult to avoid burning, and burning in that case means a really dark purple streak, which is very hard to get out. You kind of have to just cut that off. So it's difficult to get an even color, because the color changes if you get tear out in one spot, it's going to be a different purple than the smooth straight grained pieces. So it can be difficult. It's fine if you're just making a gate or something out of it. It doesn't have to be pretty, but if you're making draw sides out of it, like I did, and stupidly, it's very difficult to make it look nice.
Right. Cool. Fair enough. I've never found a wood too hard to work with that. So I don't have too much to add to that. I guess one day it will happen, but for now, I'm still pretty small on my selection. All right, everyone. Well, that's the show for tonight. As Joey said, I think we'll touch on this topic again. I've just noticed all the comments in the comment section. So clearly you guys want to talk about this. Let's dedicate an episode to it coming up, and then we can really dive into some questions. So before we end off, I just want to make a quick note. Again, 5th of May, we're going to be down at the Malini Wood Expo. And on the 5th of May, that evening, we'll be in Brisbane for a meetup. I will have the event details in the description shortly after this video. Thanks, everyone, for jumping in. Everyone in the chat, thanks very much for being involved, as always. And we'll see you guys again next Thursday, 7 p.m., same time, same place.
See ya.
Bye.